In the quiet town of Ibadan lived a young woman named Amina. She was simple in every way: her clothes, her voice, even her dreams. She worked in a small tailoring shop near the market. Every morning she swept the floor, arranged the clothes, and smiled kindly at customers. People liked her, but no one really noticed her. She wasn't loud, she wasn't stylish, and she never tried to draw attention to herself. She only wanted peace and enough money to help her mother back home in the village. Amina lived in a small room behind the tailor's shop. She cooked rice over a small stove, washed her clothes by hand, and read old storybooks before sleeping. She had no expensive phone, no makeup, no jewelry, just her warm heart and quiet strength. Her life was simple, and she was content. One morning, as she walked to work, she saw a big crowd gathered at the town hall. There were banners, cameras, and music playing. A famous businessman named Chief Bako had come to launch a new youth project. Everyone in Ibadan knew him. He was rich, powerful, and owned many shops and companies. People admired him but also feared him a little. He had the kind of smile that didn't always reach his eyes. The youth project was meant to help young people start small businesses. Chief Bako said he would choose one person to lead the project, someone who could be a role model for others. Everyone wanted the position, especially the stylish girls who always dressed in bright clothes and carried designer bags. They took pictures and posted them online, saying, "Chief Bako will surely choose me." Amina didn't even plan to apply. She told her friend Zainab, "People like me don't get chosen for big things like that." But Zainab insisted. "Just try, Amina. You are honest and hardworking. Maybe that's what they need." So Amina filled the form quietly and submitted it. She didn't tell anyone else. Days passed, and she forgot about it. She went back to her normal life, sewing, cleaning, and reading her books. 1 week later, posters appeared across town. The headline read, "Amina Yusuf selected to lead Ibadan Youth Project." She almost dropped her sewing scissors when she saw it. "This must be a mistake," she said aloud. Her boss laughed and said, "Amina, they chose you. You are famous now." The news spread quickly. People came to see her. Some congratulated her, some looked jealous, and others whispered behind her back. "She doesn't even have nice clothes," one girl said. "She's not a slay queen. Why would Chief Bako choose her?" another asked. Even Amina herself didn't know the answer. The next day, she was invited to meet Chief Bako at the town hall. She wore her neatest dress, a simple blue one she had sewn herself. Her hands trembled as she entered the large room. Chief Bako sat behind a big wooden desk, smiling warmly. "Ah, Amina," he said, "you are the new face of Ibadan's youth. I see something special in you." She bowed her head respectfully. "Thank you, sir. I will do my best." He nodded. "Good. That's what I want, a humble, honest girl who can inspire others." He gave her a folder filled with papers and instructions. "You will help oversee the first phase of our project. My team will guide you. Just follow what they tell you." Amina nodded. She didn't really understand all the big words in the papers, but she trusted him. She believed that he truly wanted to help young people. In the following days, Amina started attending meetings and visiting youth groups. People began to recognize her on the street. Some called her Madam Project Leader. Others stopped to take pictures with her. For the first time in her life, she felt seen. But the attention also made her shy. She wasn't used to so many eyes watching her. At home, she told Zainab, "I don't know why he chose me. There were many girls more beautiful, more confident." Zainab smiled. "Maybe he saw your good heart, Amina. Not everyone needs to shine loudly to be noticed." But Amina couldn't stop wondering. She remembered Chief Bako's eyes when he looked at her, warm but sharp, like someone who always had another thought hidden behind his smile. One afternoon, she met his assistant, a tall man named Tund, who helped her with project forms. Tund was kind and patient. He explained things slowly so she could understand. "Don't worry, Amina," he said one day. "You are doing well. Just keep working honestly." As the weeks passed, the project gained attention. Newspapers printed her photo. People praised her for being humble and hardworking. Some called her the pride of Ibadan. She began to feel proud but also nervous. Sometimes, she noticed strange things, documents being replaced, money transfers she didn't approve, and people whispering when she walked in. When she asked questions, Tund would just say, "Don't worry, Amina, everything is fine." Still, she trusted him and continued working. One night, after a long meeting, she went back to the office to pick up a forgotten bag. She heard voices from Chief Bako's office. The door was slightly open. "She doesn't even know," one man said. "Her name is on all the accounts." "That's the plan," another replied. "When the investigation starts, she'll take the blame." Who would suspect her? Amina froze. Her heart pounded. She quietly stepped away, her hands shaking. They were using her. That night she couldn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling of her small room, tears rolling down her cheeks. She realized why she had been chosen. Not for her kindness, not for her honesty, but because she looked too innocent to suspect. The next morning, she decided to act. She went through the project files carefully and took photos of every suspicious paper. Then she met Tund privately. "I know what's happening," she said softly. "Please tell me the truth." Tund sighed. "Amina, I'm sorry. I wanted to warn you, but Chief Bako is powerful. He's using your name to hide stolen money." Amina's heart broke, but she stood tall. "I won't let him destroy me." She gathered all her proof and went straight to the authorities. It was not easy. She was questioned for hours. But when the investigation began, the truth came out. Chief Bako had used Amina's good reputation to cover his corruption. When the news broke, people were shocked. Some who once doubted her now admired her courage. Chief Bako was arrested, and Amina's name was cleared. Life slowly returned to normal, but Amina was no longer the quiet girl she once was. She had learned that being good didn't mean being blind. She began working to help real youth groups, this time honestly and wisely. Months later, she opened her own training center for young women. At the opening, she stood before the crowd, smiling humbly. "Don't be chosen because you're easy to use," she said softly. "Be chosen because you're strong enough to lead." The crowd clapped. Zainab wiped her tears proudly. Amina smiled, her heart light and free at last. She wasn't a slay queen, but she had become something far greater, a woman of truth, courage, and grace. Soon after Amina was chosen to lead the youth project, her life changed in ways she never imagined. Everywhere she went, people now recognized her. Shopkeepers smiled wider, neighbors waved from afar, and young girls whispered her name with admiration. Even people who once ignored her now greeted her with respect. Some called her Madam Amina. Others said, "She's the lucky one." At first, she didn't know how to act. She wasn't used to so much attention. Before, her days were quiet, just work, prayer, and sleep. Now, she had meetings, interviews, and people following her with cameras. She tried her best to stay humble. She still woke up early, cooked her small pot of rice, and walked to the office with her worn-out shoes. But life around her no longer felt the same. When she reached the youth center every morning, workers stood up to greet her. "Good morning, Madam Amina," they would say. She smiled shyly and replied, "Good morning, everyone." Her calm voice made people feel comfortable around her, and soon, she became a favorite among the staff. They said she had a pure heart, one that brought peace wherever she went. Still, Amina sometimes sat alone in her office, wondering how everything had happened so fast. She often thought, why me? There were many girls more educated, more beautiful, more confident. She wanted to believe that Chief Bako saw something special in her, but a small voice in her heart told her that something wasn't right. Every few days, she would meet Chief Bako at his large office in the city. His building was tall, with shining glass walls and guards at every gate. When Amina entered, she always felt small and nervous. Chief Bako would smile and say, "Ah, Amina, our shining star. The people love you." He would shake her hand quickly, give her some papers to sign, then wave her away with a smile that never reached his eyes. He hardly spoke about the project itself. Instead, he always seemed busy with other things: phone calls, visitors, and long meetings. When Amina tried to ask questions about the money or plans, he would say, "Don't worry, my dear. Just focus on your public work. I have people handling the rest. She trusted him because he was powerful and respected. But each time she walked out of his office, she felt a strange coldness. At the youth center, Amina worked hard. She organized small training classes for young women and helped distribute sewing machines and small business kits. She took pictures with them and encouraged them to believe in themselves. "You can make your own future," she often said. The girls loved her for that. One afternoon, she stood under the hot sun watching the new center being painted. The bright yellow walls glowed in the light, and people clapped for her. Reporters came to take pictures. "Amina, smile for the camera," they shouted. She smiled politely, though her heart wasn't as happy as her face looked. That night, when she reached home, her friend Zainab was waiting with food. Zainab laughed and said, "Look at you, Madam Amina. Even the newspapers are writing about you." She waved a copy in front of her. The headline said, "Amina Yusuf, the girl who brings hope to Ibadan." Amina smiled weakly. "They are saying too much," she said. "I only want to do my job well." Zainab shook her head. "You deserve the praise. You worked hard for this." But Amina looked down. "Still, I feel something is not right. Chief Bako doesn't tell me much about the project's money. I sign papers I don't fully understand. What if I make a mistake?" Zainab frowned. "Then ask him again." "I did," Amina said softly, "but he always says, 'Don't worry.'" That night, long after Zainab left, Amina lay awake listening to the crickets outside her window. The world thought she was lucky, but she didn't feel that way. She missed her simple life, the quiet mornings, the laughter at the tailor shop, the peace of being unknown. Fame had brought her more fear than joy. The next morning, she went to work earlier than usual. The office was still quiet. She sat at her desk, staring at the piles of papers before her. They were forms for new youth projects, all needing her signature. She took a deep breath and began to read carefully. She noticed strange figures, large sums of money written in bold letters. She didn't understand everything, but some numbers looked wrong. Just then, the door opened, and Chief Bako's assistant, a man named Tund, walked in. He smiled politely. "Ah, Madam Amina, you're here early. You don't need to worry about those documents. Chief already checked them." Amina looked up. "But I should also understand what I'm signing, right?" Tund hesitated, then smiled again. "Of course, but you can trust us. We're family here." He took the papers from her hands gently and placed them in a brown envelope. "I'll handle these. You go prepare for your radio interview." Amina nodded slowly. She didn't want to seem rude, but her heart felt heavy. She watched him leave, her mind full of questions. Later that day, she sat in the radio studio. The host, a cheerful woman, asked her, "Amina, how does it feel to be the face of the Ibadan Youth Project?" Amina smiled nervously. "It feels good. I'm thankful. I only hope I can make a real difference." When the interview ended, she walked outside into the warm evening breeze. Children ran past her, laughing. People greeted her kindly. "Amina, we're proud of you," they said. She waved and smiled, but her thoughts were far away. She reached home and sat quietly in the dark for a long time. Her small room felt even smaller now. The fame that surrounded her in public disappeared when she was alone. In those silent hours, she only had her doubts for company. One day, she went to a meeting where Chief Bako introduced her to new investors. He praised her as the heart of the project. Everyone clapped. But when Amina spoke, she noticed one man whispering into Bako's ear. They both smiled secretly. She couldn't hear their words, but something in their faces made her uneasy again. After the meeting, she walked outside and stood near the gate. Tund came over and said, "You did well today." Amina sighed. "Thank you, but I still don't understand everything happening around me." He looked away. "It's best not to worry too much. The chief handles everything. You just represent the project." "But it's my name on all the papers," she whispered. He gave a small smile. "That's because everyone trusts you." Those words stayed in her mind long after he left. Everyone trusts you. They sounded kind, but they also felt like a warning. That night, she couldn't sleep again. The same questions kept running through her head. Why did Chief Bako really choose her? Why didn't he ever explain the project's money? Why did everyone keep telling her not to worry? The world saw her as lucky, but she felt like a leaf caught in a strong wind, lifted high but with no control over where she would fall. Even as she tried to smile for the cameras and shake hands with people, she carried a quiet fear in her heart. Something unseen was moving beneath all the praise, and Amina could feel it. She didn't know it yet, but her life was about to change again, this time in a way that would test her courage, her honesty, and everything she believed in. The evening air in Ibadan was warm and still when Amina decided to return to the office. She had forgotten her small brown handbag after a long day of work and thought it would take only a few minutes to collect it. The building stood quiet under the fading sun. Most of the workers had gone home, and the security guard at the gate nodded sleepily as she walked past. Amina climbed the stairs slowly. The lights in the hallway flickered, and her footsteps echoed softly against the walls. When she reached her office door, she stopped. From the next room, Chief Bako's private office, she heard voices. Two men were speaking in low tones, but the silence of the evening made every word clear. "She doesn't even know she's covering for him," one of them said. Amina froze. Her heart began to beat fast. "She signs everything without asking questions," the other replied. "By the time they find out, the money will already be gone." Amina's breath caught in her throat. Her bag no longer mattered. She stepped back quietly, her sandals making no sound. She waited until the voices faded and the office door shut behind the men as they left. Then she slipped inside. Chief Bako's office was dark except for the dim light from a lamp on the table. Papers were scattered everywhere. The air smelled of ink and dust. Amina hesitated, then moved toward her own desk next door. She opened her drawer, where she kept project files and reports. Something looked different. The neat stack of papers she had arranged the day before was gone, replaced by new ones with her signature printed across the bottom. She didn't remember signing any of them. Her hands trembled as she flipped through the documents. Each one showed large amounts of money, millions of naira, moved to strange accounts. Her eyes widened. These weren't her reports. They were fake. She sat down slowly, trying to breathe. It felt as if the room was spinning. "No," she whispered. "This can't be real." But the truth was right there on the pages, in her own handwriting, forged so carefully that even she could barely tell the difference. Amina thought back to the times Chief Bako had given her documents to sign. He always told her, "Don't worry, my dear, it's just paperwork." And Tund, his assistant, would smile and say, "You can trust us." She had trusted them completely. Now she understood why he never wanted her to ask questions. Her stomach tightened. She gathered the papers, checked others, and found more lies, false receipts, wrong account numbers, and fake reports all stamped with her name. It was as if someone had built a web around her, thread by thread, waiting for her to be trapped inside. A loud sound startled her, a door shutting downstairs. She quickly placed the papers back, locked the drawer, and turned off the lights. Her hands shook as she walked out. Every step down the stairs felt heavy. The night guard greeted her, but she couldn't even answer. Her throat was dry, her mind spinning. Outside, the street was dark and quiet. Amina walked home quickly, clutching her handbag against her chest. When she reached her small room, she locked the door and sat on the edge of her bed. The silence pressed around her. Her heart pounded like a drum. She whispered to herself, "They are using me. They are using my name." Tears filled her eyes. The same name that people had begun to praise, the same name that once made her proud, was now being used for something dirty. All her hard work, her honesty, her quiet life, it was being twisted into a lie. She couldn't sleep that night. She kept thinking about all the people who trusted her, the girls in the youth center, the workers, even her mother back in the village who called her every Sunday saying, "My daughter, you make us proud." What would happen if they believed she was part of something bad? The thought made her chest ache. The next morning, her eyes were red from crying. She went to work as usual, pretending everything was fine. The staff smiled at her, and she forced herself to smile back. But every time she saw Chief Bako or Tund, she felt a chill. Chief Bako walked past her that morning, talking loudly on the phone. He gave her a quick nod and said, "Amina, make sure those files are ready by tomorrow." His voice was smooth and cheerful, but Amina could hear something hidden beneath it, something cold. She wanted to ask him directly, but fear held her back. He was powerful, and she was just an ordinary girl. Who would believe her? If she spoke up without proof, they might say she was lying. Later that day, she went to the youth center for a community visit. The girls welcomed her with laughter and songs. They looked up to her as a role model. One of them, a young girl named Halima, said, "Madam Amina, when I grow up, I want to be like you, kind and strong." Amina smiled weakly, but her heart sank. If only they knew what was really happening. That night, after dinner, she sat outside her room under the pale moonlight. She thought about running away, leaving Ibadan and starting a new life where no one knew her. But that would make her look guilty. She knew she couldn't do that. She needed proof. The next day, she returned early to the office, before anyone else arrived. She carried her small phone and quietly took pictures of the fake documents. Her hands trembled, but she forced herself to be brave. She opened every drawer, every folder, recording everything she could find that connected Chief Bako to the fraud. While she worked, she heard footsteps behind her and nearly dropped her phone. It was Tund. "You're here early," he said, raising an eyebrow. "Yes," she replied softly, trying to stay calm. "I came to finish some reports." He nodded, then looked at her desk. "Make sure you don't stress yourself. The chief appreciates your loyalty." Loyalty. The word made her heart twist. As soon as he left, she hid her phone deep in her bag. She knew then that she couldn't trust anyone in the office. She had to find someone outside, someone who would listen to her and protect her. That evening, she visited an older woman named Mama Kemi, who worked as an accountant for the town council. Amina told her everything, her fears, the papers, the whispers she overheard. At first, Mama Kemi was silent. Then she said, "My child, you are brave to come forward. This is serious. You must keep all your evidence safe. We will help you." Amina felt a small spark of hope. For the first time since that terrible night, she didn't feel completely alone. When she returned home, she knelt beside her bed and prayed softly. "God, give me strength. I only wanted to do good. Don't let them destroy me." The days that followed were heavy. She acted normal at work, smiled when needed, and continued helping the youth center. But deep down, she was preparing for something big. She had proof now, proof that would one day reveal the truth. She didn't tell Zainab or anyone else. The less people knew, the safer it was. Every night, she looked at the pictures on her phone and whispered, "One day, the truth will come out." Though fear lived inside her, courage slowly began to grow beside it. She was still the same quiet girl from Ibadan, but something in her heart had changed. She wasn't just working to survive anymore. She was fighting for her name, her honesty, and the truth that others had tried to bury. And deep down, she knew, the secret she had discovered was only the beginning of a storm that was about to break. The morning sun rose slowly over Ibadan, painting the streets in soft gold, but for Amina, the light felt heavy. She had not slept all night. Her eyes were swollen, her body weak, but her heart burned with one decision: she would no longer stay silent. The truth had to come out, even if it cost her everything. She stood before the mirror, adjusting her simple brown dress. Her hands trembled slightly as she tied her scarf. In her small bag were copies of the documents she had photographed, the fake reports, the forged signatures, the records of money moved into secret accounts. Each page was a piece of the truth she carried like fire in her hands. As she walked out into the busy morning, the city looked the same: cars honking, sellers shouting, children running, but Amina felt different. She was no longer the quiet, fearful girl she used to be. She had seen the darkness behind the smiles, and now she was ready to face it. When she arrived at the office, Chief Bako was already there. His car, large and black, stood outside the building. She walked through the gate, her steps steady. The guards greeted her politely. Inside, the office smelled of fresh polish and power. Everyone moved around quickly, trying to impress the boss. Chief Bako's door was half open. He sat behind his desk, speaking on the phone. His laughter filled the room. It was the kind of laugh that carried no warmth. When he saw Amina, He waved her in and ended his call. "Ah, Amina, my dear," he said, smiling widely. "You're early today. What brings you here so bright and serious?" Amina stood before him, her heart pounding. She looked straight into his eyes and said quietly, "I want to know the truth, Chief. Why did you choose me for this project?" The smile on his face faded slightly. He leaned back in his chair. "Why?" he repeated. "Because you were perfect for it. Everyone loves you, trusts you. That's important for business." Amina shook her head. "You didn't choose me for my work. You chose me because people would never suspect me. You used my name to hide your lies." For a moment, silence filled the room. The air felt heavy. Then Chief Bako gave a short, cold laugh. "You're a smart girl after all," he said. "Yes, I used your name. But don't pretend to be shocked. That's how the world works. Everyone uses someone." Tears filled Amina's eyes, but she stood firm. "You used my honesty to steal from people who trusted you. That's evil." He leaned forward, his smile gone now. "Careful, Amina. You're speaking to a man who can destroy you with one phone call. Do you think anyone will believe you over me? I have power. I have money. You are just a small tailor's daughter from the market." Amina's voice shook, but she didn't back down. "Maybe I am small, but I still have the truth. And the truth will speak louder than your money." Chief Bako's eyes narrowed. "You don't know what you're doing. Think carefully before you ruin your life." But Amina had already made her choice. Without another word, she turned and walked out of his office. Her heart was racing, but her steps were strong. She knew what she had to do next. She went straight to the town council office, carrying her small bag tightly in her hands. When she arrived, she met the senior officer, a woman named Mrs. Adewale. Amina had met her once before at an event. She was known for being honest and strict. "Good morning, Ma," Amina said quietly. "I need to show you something important." Mrs. Adewale looked at her curiously. "What is it, my dear?" Amina opened her bag and placed the documents on the table. "These papers are from the youth project. They're fake. My name is on them, but I didn't sign them. Chief Bako used me to hide what he was doing." For a long moment, the woman said nothing. She studied the papers carefully. Then she looked up, her expression serious. "This is a serious matter, Amina. Are you ready for what may come if we start this investigation?" Amina swallowed hard. "Yes, Ma. I'm ready. I can't let him keep lying." The next few days were filled with tension. Government officers arrived at the office quietly, pretending to check on the project. They took copies of documents, asked questions, and watched the staff closely. Amina went about her work as if nothing had changed, but inside she was terrified. Every time the phone rang, she thought it might be Chief Bako calling to threaten her. On the third day, the news broke. The investigation team found missing funds, false records, and secret bank accounts connected to Chief Bako. They also found proof that Amina's name had been used without her consent. When the report went public, Ibadan buzzed with shock. People gathered in small groups, whispering, "Did you hear? Chief Bako has been caught." Some refused to believe it. Others felt sorry for Amina, who had carried the shame alone for so long. Chief Bako tried to deny everything. He called a press meeting and said, "This is all a misunderstanding. The girl was careless with her work." But when reporters showed the signed documents and the financial transfers, his words fell apart. Amina watched it all on a small television at home. Her heart was heavy, not joyful. She didn't feel proud. She only felt tired. The man who once smiled at her like a mentor was now on the news, being taken away in handcuffs. Later that evening, Zainab rushed to her house, breathless. "Amina, I saw it. Everyone knows now. They believe you." Amina nodded slowly. Tears filled her eyes again, but this time they were tears of relief. "It's over, Zainab. The truth is finally out." Her friend hugged her tightly. "You were brave, Amina. Most people would have stayed quiet." Amina sighed softly. "It wasn't easy. I was scared every day. But I couldn't let him destroy my name." That night, For the first time in many weeks, Amina slept peacefully. The fear that had followed her for so long began to fade. The next morning, she went to the youth center. The young girls she had trained ran to her and hugged her. "Madam Amina, we're proud of you," they said, their faces glowing with admiration. She smiled at them gently. "Always remember," she told them, "being good doesn't mean being silent when you see wrong. Sometimes, the truth will cost you everything, but it will also set you free." As days passed, people began to respect her even more. The government appointed a new committee to manage the youth project, and they asked Amina to join it. She agreed, but only on one condition, that every report and every fund be open and transparent. In the following months, the project slowly began to rebuild its name. Amina worked quietly, avoiding fame, focusing only on helping others. She no longer wanted to be called lucky or famous. She wanted to be known for something different: honesty. Sometimes, she still thought of Chief Bako, sitting somewhere behind prison walls. She wondered if he ever felt regret. But she learned not to carry his guilt. She had done her part. She had spoken the truth. One Sunday afternoon, she walked to the small market and bought fabric for sewing. The shopkeeper smiled and said, "Ah, Madam Amina, the brave woman of Ibadan." Amina laughed softly. "I'm just a tailor who didn't stay silent," she said. The wind blew gently, carrying the smell of roasted corn and dust. The sky was clear, and for the first time in a long while, she felt light inside. She looked around her town, full of noise and life, and whispered to herself, "I did the right thing." The news of Chief Bako's arrest spread quickly across Ibadan. People gathered in small groups in the market, talking about it with surprise and disbelief. Some said, "It serves him right," while others whispered, "Who would have thought Amina would be the one to bring him down?" For days, her name filled every conversation, but Amina herself stayed quiet. She didn't celebrate. She didn't boast. She just wanted peace after the long, painful storm. When the officials confirmed that Amina had no part in the corruption, her reputation was restored. The newspapers printed her story, "Young Woman Exposes Powerful Man's Lies." Some people came to her home to apologize for doubting her. Old friends who had avoided her suddenly returned, saying they had always believed in her. Amina accepted their words with a calm smile but didn't hold grudges. She had learned that truth and patience always win, even if it takes time. Her small house became a place of hope for many young women who came to visit her. They wanted to know how she had found the courage to speak up. Amina listened to their stories: girls afraid of their bosses, wives scared to challenge unfair treatment, students worried about injustice at school. She realized something: too many women stayed silent because they didn't believe their voices mattered. That thought touched her deeply. One night, as she sat outside her house under the moonlight, Amina thought about everything that had happened. The cool breeze brushed against her face. She looked up at the stars and whispered, "Maybe this all happened for a reason." Her mother's words echoed in her memory: "When life breaks you, it's only teaching you how to rebuild stronger." The next morning, she visited her old school. The classrooms were small, the walls cracked, and the children sat on wooden benches. The girls looked shy and quiet, their eyes full of dreams but also fear. Amina saw herself in them. That day, she decided to start something new, a place where girls could learn not only skills but also courage. With the little savings she had, and help from a few kind people, she opened a small center on the edge of town. The building was simple, made of red bricks and painted white, with a blue door and a small garden in front. On the signboard, she wrote, "The House of Light, for every young woman who dares to dream." At first, only a few girls came. Some came to learn tailoring. Others came just to talk and listen. Amina taught them not only how to sew or read, but also how to speak up for themselves. She told them that being humble didn't mean being weak, and being quiet didn't mean being afraid. Slowly, more girls joined. They came from nearby villages, bringing laughter, songs, and energy to the little center. Every day, the sound of their sewing machines filled the air. Sometimes they sang together while they worked. Amina would sit by the window, watching them, her heart full of quiet joy. She no longer wanted fame or money. She had found something far more precious: purpose. On the day of the center's opening ceremony, people from all over Ibadan gathered. There were local leaders, teachers, mothers, and even some of the men who once laughed at her. They brought flowers and gifts, filling the air with excitement. Children ran around with colorful balloons. The women wore bright dresses, and drums played softly in the background. When Amina stood up to speak, the crowd became silent. She looked at the faces before her, some she knew, others she didn't, but all were watching her with admiration. Her hands trembled slightly as she held the microphone, but her voice was calm. "I started this journey as an ordinary girl," she began. "I didn't have wealth, power, or fame. But I had something stronger: truth. When people lied about me, I stayed silent, but not because I was weak. I stayed silent to find the right time to speak." The crowd nodded, listening closely. She continued, "Many of you remember how I was chosen for Chief Bako's project. At that time, I thought it was because I worked hard. But later, I learned a painful truth. Sometimes people choose you, not for your goodness, but because they can use your goodness to hide their wrongs." A soft murmur ran through the crowd. Amina paused for a moment, then smiled sadly. "But that is not the end of the story. When lies fall, truth always stands tall. I was scared, but I chose to speak up. And today, I am free because of that decision." The crowd clapped, their faces glowing with respect. Amina's eyes shone with tears as she looked at the young girls sitting in the front row. She pointed to them and said, "My message today is for every young woman here. Don't let anyone use your kindness as a tool. Don't let anyone choose you because you're easy to control. Be chosen because you are strong enough to lead. You don't need to wear gold or fancy clothes to shine. Your light comes from your honesty, your courage, and your heart." The audience erupted in applause. Some women wiped tears from their eyes. Even the men nodded in agreement. Amina felt a warmth spread through her chest. She smiled, a smile full of peace and quiet strength. After the ceremony, people gathered around her, congratulating her. The mayor of the town came forward and said, "You have given Ibadan a gift, Amina. You have reminded us that real power comes from integrity." Amina bowed her head humbly. "Thank you, sir. I only did what was right." Later that evening, when everyone had left, Amina sat alone inside the center. The chairs were empty, the floor still scattered with petals from the celebration. She looked at the framed photo of her late mother on the wall and whispered, "Mama, I made it. I didn't give up." A soft wind entered through the window, rustling the papers on her desk. It felt like a gentle hug from the past. She smiled and closed her eyes. In the following weeks, life at the center became lively and full. Girls came early every morning, eager to learn. Some learned tailoring, others learned reading and writing. Amina also invited local women to give talks about self-respect and leadership. The center became a safe space where laughter and learning mixed together. One afternoon, a young girl named Halima stayed behind after class. She said shyly, "Auntie Amina, I used to think I was not good enough for anything. But now, I believe I can become a teacher." Amina touched her shoulder gently. "You can be anything, my dear, as long as you stay true to yourself. Never let fear stop you." Moments like that made all the struggle worthwhile. Amina knew that change did not happen overnight. But every girl who walked out of her center carried a little more confidence than before. That was enough for her. Months later, she was invited to speak at a women's conference in Lagos. She stood on a big stage, dressed in her simple traditional gown, and told her story. When she finished, the hall thundered with applause. But she didn't see it as her victory alone. It was a victory for every woman who had ever been silenced or underestimated. When she returned to Ibadan, she walked through the market with her usual calm. People greeted her with warm smiles, calling her Madam Courage. She laughed softly each time and waved. Inside, her heart was light. That evening, she sat outside the center as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The world was quiet. The girls had gone home, and only the sound of birds filled the air. Amina closed her eyes, feeling peace. Amina smiled, her heart calm, her soul free.